Elements.cloud is the platform that enables you to capture and track all the documentation and also build all the analysis that's required to make changes to Salesforce quickly, but with confidence that you won't break the org. So inside Elements.cloud, you can capture feedback, manage requirements, define those requirements into work items. So that's releases, user stories, and process diagrams linked to metadata items. Do all the analysis associated with your org, so all the where used, and then pass all that information across to the development team so that they can build the app quickly without breaking anything, and then release it. Here we are in a Salesforce record page. This could be classic or lightning. You can see here we've embedded a process diagram which we can use for help. And over here you can see that the help icon we've taken over and we can provide more help. But what I want to show you is the ability for end users to leave feedback. And here you can see that I've left some feedback about tracking vaccination status. Elements manages feedback, stories, and requirements as a series of intelligent lists. Here is the feedback, and you can see the links back to those notes that I left associated with the object called location. And feedback I can turn into either requirements or user stories. And here are all the requirements managed in a list. Every requirement has a status and a workflow. You can assess its risk and have a series of custom fields. And for every requirement, you have the ability to add documentation, link it to user stories, have discussions, and share it with people. But to validate requirements, we need to look at the business processes. Elements has a hierarchical process mapping tool where all the diagrams are version controlled and, as you saw before, can be embedded inside Salesforce record pages. Any one of these boxes can drill down into more detail in terms of a process, or you can draw data models. All diagrams are version controlled, and I can link any business process step to a user story or a requirement. If I roll over any user story here, it lights up the particular steps which are touched by that particular user story, so I can start to do some impact analysis. You could also link any process step to a metadata item inside Salesforce. You can also add documentation to any process step which can be used as training material for end users. So with a combination of the requirements and the process maps, we can then start to define the user stories, which are the work items we're going to pass across to our development team. And we want to group those user stories into releases. So here are the different releases, and I want to look at the first release for vaccine management. So here's that release. I can see that I have a series of process diagrams that are going to be updated or published for this release. There are the requirements associated with this release, and there are the user stories. So I see that there are 4 user stories in different statuses, and I've assessed the risk of the user stories based on the changes to the business process from a compliance perspective, but also the technical implications based on the metadata. So I can track the risk, but also I can see the metadata items that are changed associated with any user story. So let me show you where all that metadata information comes from. Using the Metadata API, we build this metadata dictionary, and we give you information about the metadata dictionary. We synchronize it every night, both production and sandboxes. But it's a tree structure, so you can go down to any one of these, open it up. And if I now go down to, say, an object, the right-hand panel is context sensitive. It's telling me everything about this particular object, records by record type. It assesses the field impact. Those that are low impact means that they have no data, they're not used anywhere. High means that they have a good amount of data, but also they're used in a number of different places. Everything in the right-hand panel enables me to identify items for cleanup. We have impact analysis, so it tells me every field and how well populated it is. I can add documentation, both notes, but also links to process steps. And I can link it to both requirements and to user stories. But let's go down a bit further. Let's go down to field level. The same information. But when I start looking at the dependencies, it's now telling me field population by record type, and then where is this field used. So it's used in one formula field, for page layouts, for reports, 2 validation rules, and it didn't find this particular field in any of those other 11 places. So that's the single level where used, but we have a dependency tree, which is a multi-level where used. So here's the budget field and everywhere it's used, but I can now open it up and see that that field is used in a custom field, which is used in another custom field. Or this field is used in a report. So if I click on that, I can see that this is already being changed in a story called required for vaccines. So if I'm making changes to this budget field, I might also need to include some of these other items in the manifest for that user story to make sure that we've considered them. So I can go back to the user story, click copy link, and now I can start to say right mouse click, paste story link, say I need to update that. Give it a reason and attach it. I could also say that this field here needs to be updated. And also that dashboard. So very quickly I can include other things on the user story to make sure I've done the full analysis, the impact analysis of those changes. If I go back to my user story, you can now see that those additional metadata items have been added to this user story. And this right panel that I've shown you that's really valuable is sitting inside Elements, but anywhere you see this little blue icon, it will launch Salesforce Setup and it will pop this right panel inside Setup. So here is the example for, in this case, the location object, and there is the right panel for this object. If I go to a field, there's the right panel. If I go to a record page in Apex class, that right panel, which we are doing all the analysis for inside our org model, we inject into the setup page inside Salesforce. So the benefits of using the Elements.cloud platform. Firstly, you have all the documentation and all the interrelationships managed for you. And this can reduce your impact analysis by up to 50%. Secondly, with the business process analysis approach, the business process mapping, you can drive out up to 25% of process improvement savings without even having to change Salesforce. And finally, you can massively reduce the amount of effort in terms of impact analysis because of the org analysis we do in your Salesforce org. So it takes just 2 minutes to get Elements set up. It takes between 10 minutes and 2 hours to analyze your org and build all that analysis, and it will then do that every night. So very quickly, we can get you delivering changes into Salesforce more quickly with a lower risk. So please come and talk to us about it.